Right, Alison Miller is with us to talk to us about Ireland's defeat at home against England in the Six Nations. Alison, it seems weird to say it, but maybe it wasn't as bad as it could have been.
No, let's put this into context. The whole tournament, they're the first team to keep England under 50 points. So I know they didn't score, so that's a big area they'll have to look at because they haven't scored. If you look at their attack, I suppose, unfortunately, they have scored one try against Wales, a penalty against France, a penalty try against Italy, and no score against England. So their defence really improved over the weekend. As I said, the first team so far in the championship that haven't let England score over 50 points, which they've done to the other teams. But not to score is, I suppose, the girls will be disappointed, and loads of areas to work on going forward now.
It's kind of, I guess, we are clutching at straws at this point. The wreckage of this season is going to be very difficult to understand long term. Are there any green shoots that you're seeing that the side is improving, notwithstanding the fact that they did keep them under 50 points? One aspect or one argument to that might be just that England took their foot off the gas in the second half.
Yeah, I will be honest, I don't think I'd say England will be disappointed with their performance. They had a lot of errors, and they had so much possession. They weren't clinical when they had opportunities to score. But that's down to Ireland too. Ireland forced them into a lot of knock-ons, and Ireland's defensive sets were very good, turned over balls, forced them into errors. England were ill-disciplined around the ruck time sometimes, but Ireland, were responsible for some of that. But at the same time, and this is no disrespect to the players, England are coming there knowing, I suppose, that they're going to win the game, and then maybe it's hard to get up for a game like that. But at the same time, England have such a competitive 23 and beyond that they're essentially playing for places for next weekend. So there'll be girls there that played for England at the weekend that might not start now or might not get on the 23 because of their performance at the weekend. So, at the same time, there is consequences for those girls not performing against Ireland. But yeah, there is green shoots. Ireland's defensive structure looks a lot better. Their spacing looks a lot better. Like their missed tackles is still quite high, but a team against England, that's going to be the case for every team in the tournament, with the exception of France, if we're being honest. So, good improvements around that area. I thought the ruck height had come down a lot from last week, so that was better. Green shoots in terms of, I think, Derv Nickelvard has had a really good tournament. Watching her there on Saturday, she's full of energy. She's quite small. She's playing 8. She's quite small. She's got really good footwork. She always beats the first defender generally, and she's so smart. There was a time on Saturday where she had stepped a few defenders, carried, and she was on the ground, releases the ball, gets back up on her feet and carries again. So she's been really good, full of energy. She's absolutely everywhere. I think Nicola Friday's had a very consistent tournament. Sam Monaghan there, she's defensively so good around the park. She'll probably herself look at her line out throwing and think she'll have to improve on that. But around the park, she's been very good. And Niamh Jones again, I'm mixing the two. Not that I'm mixing the two enough. Niamh Jones is hooker, as I obviously know. Niamh Jones will have to improve her throwing in the line out, and she's been really good around the park. And then you're looking at Sam Monaghan there, who carries hard, offload, defensively very good. So the four of them there, I think, have had consistent tournaments, and it's difficult for this group of players. And I think, it's hard when you're a young player, and if you're on social media and you're reading the stuff that comes, a lot of it uneducated, really, some of it, and it, not about the performance, but other things. So look, you'd hope that this is a really difficult time for these players, but hopefully it will have a galvanising effect on these players, and that they'll come together now and work really, 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 really hard to try and catch up and improve all those things that they need to improve. And all they can do is work hard and try and get better and keep their heads down, and not try and it's a difficult one, isn't it? Social media and all these things now, you didn't have that years ago. like I started playing in 2010, and I was lucky that we were competitive enough even from that stage on. But like before then, you know, like Fiona, Coughlin, Lynn Cantwell, they would have been shipping big defeats, but you didn't have the media pressure then. So it's about just keeping your head down and working really hard, because that's what they'll have to do. And I suppose they'll have to look at their improvements, but attack is really where you want to see the improvements with this team, because they haven't scored tries, and they scored barely any tries, but you know, we don't see like the front door, back door options. We're just kind of seeing quite a basic attack. So that's an area that they look to improve.
As obviously a lot in that there, Alison. It was interesting listening to Niamh Briggs ahead of the game on the criticism and the understanding the coaching team have that, you know, 20, 21-year-olds are going to be on social media. You can tell them stay away from it, ignore it, but human nature is they're going to be on Twitter, they're going to be on Instagram. All of this is going to be feeding in, and that they are trying to work in the background to keep that belief there and for them to ignore the noise that's around it. But it's very, very difficult. Like in most sports, we would say setting up defensively is the easy part, and it was damage limitation. It was always going to be damage limitation on Saturday, so they knew what England were going to bring. Ireland, when they actually have the ball, what was your assessment of when they had opportunities to get at England, what they did at the weekend?
We didn't have very many opportunities, but at times we probably didn't look like we forced. There was one chance in the second half, I think, and we stretched them wide and gone back over to the right hand side and building good phases, and Lauren Delaney kind of put a ball through along the ground with a kick, and just they're kind of the wrong option at the time. You want to keep building phases, and then England turned the ball over again. So I suppose, being honest, I suppose it didn't look hugely threatening when they had the ball, but you know, you still got ability to score if you grind it out and you hold on to the ball. You know, you can score, but I think just that they took the wrong options at like different times. Maybe kicked the ball away or just got turned over then. So we weren't actually able to see much attack because we didn't really have the ball. But like that was an example of very good attack that ended up then being like England turned it over then because the chip through didn't work. So and I just think in regards to the thing about social media, that, you know, 20, 21-year-olds, they will be on social media. Well, maybe that's a learning for them. If you talk to some of the men's players, some of them won't go on social media for that 5 or 6 weeks, you know. And if that's something that helps those players, and it is difficult, like I didn't grow up with social media, I'm not into it at all myself even now, but like if that's the hard hit you have to take for the 6 weeks, so you're not reading very negative material, and look, a lot of times from let's be honest, people that have no face to their name or no name to their whatever bio, maybe that's a learning, and maybe it's a thing that they need to do, like, and maybe they need to take the hit on that for 5 or 6 weeks, and if that helps, it could help. You know, maybe that's something that they'll decide next year. You know what? Can I do without it for 6 weeks? Maybe I can, and I go back on it. Because they are professionals now, and you will hear some of the professional men's players, they will do that. Because, and I was talking to an experienced player recently who's retired, and he said, look, he just tended not to read it, because when you're being told how great you are, generally that's not the case. Like, you're being told you're absolutely fantastic, and then when you're told you're absolutely terrible, but usually it's in the middle. Now, I know for these girls at the moment, they are not winning, and people are saying like horrible stuff as well. Maybe that's just a choice that they have to take the hard hit, get off. I'm not on social media, so I don't really know, but you know, like maybe that's been part of a professional approach that they'll take, and they might be able to. Yeah. And maybe some of the players maybe can be on it and be very good at not letting it affect them, and they'll know it as individuals, whether they'll learn from this year because they're young. They'll learn from going, well, did all that negativity around social media, did that affect me? Did that get into my head? No. Okay, I can stay on it. Yes, maybe I'll get off it for 6 weeks, but that's part of learning to be a professional player.
One last point, Alison. Yeah. The World 15, the 3 tiers competition that is going to be introduced, there's a lot of talk that we're going to be in the 3rd tier of that, and so therefore we'll be playing against some of the weakest teams around the world. In a way, right? Is it our own hubris? Are we Meath bragging about not being in the Tailteann Cup and then ended up in the Tailteann Cup and being too proud to go into it. Might it actually be better for this team to win some games against opposition, knowing that every year you'll have the Six Nations and you can measure yourself against better teams? Because that's where we are in the world. That's where a decade-long process of underinvestment in the women's game has left us a third-tier nation, and we need to stop thinking and pretending that we're a tier one until we start spending like a tier one.
I don't think it's all about money though either. Like, so yeah, look, don't get me wrong, if you had an extra 10 grand there, you might entice more players to be full-time. That's being honest, but money doesn't, cover over the cracks. It's not going to improve players straight away. It'll help, like any team that has more money. It does help. It doesn't make you world class overnight. But that's a hard question to answer, because I think, I would never be a person that thinks you always have to aspire to be better. You've got to be realistic. But I don't think, like, I'm not even sure who's in tier 3. Like, who are those teams? And if you're
Kazakhstan, Jamaica.
Yeah. Who are they else? Anyone else? Kazakhstan, Jamaica?
Spain are going to be tier 2. Unless we win at the weekend, we're going to go into a playoff against Spain. Spain are going to be tier 2, so we're behind those nations.
Like, does it raise questions about the future of the Six Nations? I saw the England coach talking about this last week as to how viable it was for England and France to keep racking up these sort of scores, that if Ireland are a tier 3 team, and this is hard, I'm sure, for you to even consider where you were a decade ago to be having this conversation, like, is the future of the Six Nations under threat when you do have such a gap in quality between the teams?
Hard question to answer again. And I think Ireland needs to be tier 2, end of. They need to be there. They need to be, keeping an eye on tier 1, but not being going down to tier 3. And that's being really honest. And like people saying, like, England and France England have drove standards and have done everything to progress this game to where it is. So, like, it's up to the other teams to catch up and the other unions to do everything in their power to make Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Italy competitive. And you can't fault England or France for being progressive and doing more. They can go out and play. And, they have to play the best they can play and be ruthless, because if they don't do that, that's not good for the game as a whole. It's not good for the future of the game, where we'll be in 10 years. Different questions there, but France, England, like, it's not so long ago where these teams weren't hammering all the other teams. So, like, you can't, like, what I'm trying to say is, like, we just need those other teams to catch up, and whatever they need to do that, those unions and those countries got to do it.
Okay.
And they can't be making excuses, just got to do it. And, there is 8 jobs now advertised in the RFU for like athletic development, and then I think basic, like, a talent ID/scout developing younger players. So, like, hopefully that will work and we'll see young girls coming through. And we don't know what young girls could through and make a massive impact.
Well, there needs to be an urgency around the appointment of those, and there needs to be, like, a public-facing declaration that this is the low point and we're working, as opposed to just putting Greg and Niamh out. I think they're a bit
and there needs to be the right people need to
totally
get those jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Alison, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. Cheers.
Yeah, no problem. Have a great day, guys.
Alison Miller gave us some thoughts on Ireland being beaten 48-0 at the weekend.